So, Rick, I'm going to come to you, actually, my man. What's been going on? What's the win? What's the challenge? What's been happening?
Win. Well, I guess I'm just getting really ahead on Good Men Project. I got 3 articles over to him. Got 2 more to get over to him before I leave on vacation. We'll see what kind of edits come back from those, but it feels good. Getting back in the swing of that. So I guess that's kind of the biggest win. I'm trying to think. I'm on drugs that I'm just now starting to wake up from. So look at my list here.
You must have been in Vegas too.
No, definitely not in Vegas. Drew and I got pretty much everything put together. The sales page is done. I haven't seen it, but he and I are meeting tomorrow, so definitely going to be working towards launching that. And I guess that's about it. Like I said, there's not anything super big going on. There's about 21, I think I counted 21 colleges and universities who had truly expressed interest in the program. So I put together like a one sheet on, more than a one sheet, but just a 2-page write-up on what the program looks like and the different ways they could use it. So I'm going to get those sent back out to those colleges and universities today. And I guess, I don't know if this had happened last week or not, but I'll bring it up. And Grant has asked me to step up even more in his team to do some additional work for him. So there we go.
Good, man. Is that kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Like, is that kind of quid pro quo work, or is that literal, I will invoice you for this stuff?
Oh no, it's full pay.
Good, man.
No. Yeah. So I think he's having me step into this particular role because of my marketing background. He wants me to review the speakers' websites as they get them finished up and give critiques back to them, as well as to review their speaker reels. So
that sounds good. Do you know what? Randomly, I had a call about him. He was going to do something similar to what we're doing, but with speaker websites. But he was going to do it in a really technically terrible way that would have caused so much hassle. So just keep that in mind, because there's the platform that we've got, we can easily license that out to someone like Grant. Just keep that in mind, because he keeps chipping away at it every time I see him.
Yep.
But if he wants to talk about it, let me know, because I've got no interest.
Well, I actually have a chat with him today, so let's see if I might be able to work that in. So
yeah, think on it, man. Like I said, we've made it more of a franchisable thing. So anyway, that's good, man. Well done. That's good week. And how's the foot? How is the foot in all seriousness? Getting better?
It is getting better. It's kind of weird. The boot they have me wear to kind of keep it stabilized actually causes more pain than good. So
I missed something. What happened?
I was running the New York City Marathon yesterday and I broke my toe. I did break my toe. I wasn't running the marathon, but I did break my toe.
I was wondering, because you look in such great shape to be running that marathon.
Well, yeah, it is. So
sorry about that. I had to take the shot.
Whatever, buddy. Walking disease from Vegas. I swear to God.
Yeah.
Oh man, I want to go last today.
No, I broke my toe. It's been over a week ago now.
Oh man, the big toe.
Yep, the big right toe, bad enough that the podiatrist actually told me Monday. I guess we hadn't talked about that. That he was on the fence whether to do surgery or try to let it heal on its own. So,
oh shit.
Yeah. So for now, we're going to let it heal on its own with keeping it wrapped and putting me in this stupid boot that hurts, but all good. So didn't keep me from going out wine tasting yesterday. So there we have it.
I think it would take a lot more than that to stop you going out wine tasting. Good. Well, good week, man. Well done on Grant's work and getting ahead on the Good Men project as well. Good stuff. So, Andrea, I'm going to come to you.
Okay.
Because you were like, I want to go last. And that's like a red rag to a ball. I'm like, no.
Oh.
You can go second.
Okay.
So what's going on? Tell us.
So I had my work to do, my pre-work questionnaire to fill out for branding session with my designer, and I got all of that in, and I have a follow-up meeting right after this.
Good.
Just for additional questions that she might have. Things are starting to really move. I got a call last Thursday from a gentleman who's going to collaborate with Marge and I, saying that he wants to do some programming and his kids, it's a charter school and they're asking him for some programming. So we're talking about developing some of that. That was an exciting call. And I also was contacted by Strength Scope, and they're getting serious about leaning in to do more together. And they've rebranded too. They're now calling themselves Helios, which is, you know, getting into all different areas of work that they're doing to transform workplaces. Okay. So that's really exciting, actually. And what else? I also had an interesting meeting at school, which will turn into material for me. It was about digital citizenship among middle schoolers, because it's starting to get a little out of hand with the kids and phones. So it was an interesting discussion because the parents have such a steep learning curve with what they're using and how they're communicating. And the other learning curve that's steep is for the kids, how impulsive they are and putting stuff out there and not really realizing how permanent things are that are out there. So I see that as an opportunity for more content for me, and even a podcast episode.
I think probably more than an episode. In all fairness, I think that's you could make an entire career out of that.
Yeah, and it's also like I also see, you know, a webinar or a Facebook Live with maybe a Verizon person with me, showing parents step by step how to go into the different apps that they're using, and that will constantly be changing. So that's the challenge.
There's so much content. Sorry to jump in there, but I know we've been on content for the last few weeks. There's so much content in there insofar as just generating base level search results, you know, because it's speaking to the questions that the parents will have of how to get the kids on board with this idea, how to physically and technically, how do I go into these things? You know, there's a heck of a lot of content in there that you could very quickly put together. But there will be very good quality evergreen stuff. That's a really solid thread to just pull a little bit further on.
Yeah. And there's also recent data that came out about, you know, the data around technology and isolation. It's equivalent to what smoking 10 packs of cigarettes a day does to your brain.
Oh, wow.
So this has to get out because it's having such an implication on global depression trends. And the measurements for global stats just came out and were the lowest we've ever been since they started taking measurement. So the trend is downward. So this needs to be a message that equates smoking to cancer, because this is the equivalent of cancer coming if we don't reverse the trend. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's something to look into. I know it's kind of, you'd have to angle it from your own humankind and parenting and kids' perspective. I know you'd be able to do that. It's not a stretch, is it?
Oh, yeah. No, kind is disconnecting. Being kind to yourself is unplugging. So that's a big part of my shtick. And
Good.
So that was a good week. And I got my buckets in, so that was good. Thanks for the reminder.
No, pleasure. We'll talk about those in a little while as well when we pick up the content. So, no, excellent work, everyone, on that one. Thank you very much. Carm, I'm going to come to you. Give us the skinny on Vegas. Tell us all about it.
Oh, guys, long, hard, fabulous. I'll just start at the top of my talking points that I wrote down here. I did not get my federal mogul deal like I did the last 2 years in a row at Deal Done There. Yet I met Mike, the VP of marketing for Federal Mogul, at a conference when I went to go, and it wasn't in the right mood to, talk business. And so when the conference was over and I went to look for him, he was gone. And then I kept going back to the booth and he wasn't there. So I'm actually just writing a letter to him right now. And I basically said, hey, I'm sorry we didn't hook up. I've always gotten the deal from you at Apex. I feel like I came home naked. And we need to put this thing together. And so and I had a chance to really rethink how we could approach his commercials in the show from instead of doing a product benefit thing to reinvent the spots that they would be how to sell the benefits to the service advisor. So, oh, cool. It does this, this, and this. How about the 4 steps to selling shocks and struts in a commercial? So that's the new company that just merged with them. So I think, and I know he's going to have to forward this to his confederate over at Tenneco. And so I'm getting done with that. I'm going to put out a pretty cool letter to him. So I didn't get the deal, but yet I had meetings with people, some of them that were scheduled that said, hey, we'd love to do something together. You have so much great content. How could we work together? And I said, well, just throw an idea up on the wall. You see, well, if you do this for me, I could do this for you. And I said, so you're looking to trade? Well, yes, we have 100,000 people on our email list. And so I'm not necessarily in the mood to trade, but I didn't close the door on anything. I really, what was amazing to be there is to meet so many people coming up to me saying they wanted to meet me, take a selfie. I've really helped them in their business. And the biggest impact that I had was a woman called Tara Topol who came up to me and says, I have to have a picture with you. And I says, great. And so blah, blah, blah. And then she said, you saved my marriage and you saved my business. And I said, okay, help me with this. And she goes, well, we were really struggling. And then I discovered the podcast. And then I went there and I saw your categories and I clicked on the female shop owners and husbands and wives. And all I did is listen to those things, me and my husband, and we figured out what we needed to do. And then we started to make that change. We hired one of the business coaches that's been on your show, and we are turned around. And so thank you for that. And that was the warm and fuzzy that I needed to realize that what I'm doing and is having a bigger impact than I even know. I realized that my Adopt-A-Shop thing needs to get launched, and I need to change its name to Operation Adopt-A-Shop, because as I was staring it with so many people, they came to me and said, yeah, we can do this. This would be great. And I said, well, then you're going to help me get this thing launched. Here's what I'm calling it. And they loved it. Of course, I did my big panel discussion. I led a panel, and it was a great turnout and a great event. What else? Dozens of interviews that I came home with. I did a Carmcast live from there, and there ended up 14 people inside the studio ringing around, my tables and stuff. And it was a hoot and it was a blast. Every 4 or 5 minutes, somebody would show up and we'd have to keep shifting people around. So as a live thing, it was vibrant and it was fun. And we were all just chatting about the show and in the industry. I also did a live town hall academy from a shop owner's place in North Las Vegas. And I invited through social media and my outlets, people to stop by after we were done with the show at 10 and get a shop tour, because the title of the show was The Extreme Values of Doing Shop Tours, meaning guys go to each other's businesses, they get ideas, they share ideas. And so I had multiple people in the seats. I had people help me drive me there, help me set up, and it was fabulous. There were 30. And they actually showed up and just were in the audience and for the show. So it was really dynamic, and I loved it. So I walked away, Mark, with an incredible feeling about the premium side of my show. And I sat down with somebody who had won one night, and we were kind of brainstorming some things. And you know how you start playing with numbers and you start looking at what it could possibly be, and then how do you take that number and build it back? And all I kept thinking about, everyone, and maybe you all can chip in on this, is that I wanted to take this premium thing and go to Scott Brown from Diag Network and say, Scott, you can have a show, and go to this guy and you can have a show, and go to this guy and you can have a show, and come on in. And I started a franchise, if you will. Okay, they would do, and I realized that was wrong. I could go to Scott and say, would you like to do a single show? Would you like to come in and do a single show? You can come back in 3 months and do another one, but not investing in any one individual in a franchise podcast, but bringing in so many different ones, put them behind the firewall. And so I could do a whole lot more people inside the industry with singles and maybe double podcasts and 3 or 4 than putting my all eggs in a couple of particular baskets. And then I started to figure out, well, how do I end up compensating these people? And I come up with this really cool model that says, when I get to this many people, here's what you can get paid to come in. When I get to this many people, this is what you get paid to come in. And so I'm just again, I'm not sure I'm right or wrong, but I was trying to figure out how I could build my income and expense model as we progressed. So those were my takeaways for this week, everyone. So much going on.
That makes sense. And how did Rick perform whilst you were away? All good?
His son was in the hospital with pneumonia. He's 3-month-old. So I lost Rick for a very large portion of the week, and I just got a slack from him that they just came home with the baby and thanked us for our prayers. And so he did stay up to speed, but it was nowhere in the timeline that we would normally have. So I just kind of let him go. And so I'll hook up with him this evening now, his time. Actually, no, it's 11:30 his time. I'll probably talk to him in the morning, and we'll just get ourselves back on track.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that's interesting. I know that will frustrate you, even though you want everyone to be all right. It's still frustrating, isn't it?
Really? Do you think so?
You know what it's like. I get that. I'm like that. I'm like, Andrew, you're going to hate this, but I'm like, I toe the line between got to get shit done and having some empathy. So I'm like, like if even though Izzy's my sister, like if she's off, like Josh is not well, he's my nephew, and I'm like, that's like, I want him to be all right. But what's going to happen with this podcast episode? You know what I mean? I'm like, my brain just does not, like, I'm so bad with that. So I totally get it.
The older I get though, Mark, and I've got a few years on you, the more, I used to be a raving lunatic then, now. And, it had to get done, and this is how it's going to be. And yeah, I do care about how you want to get it done, but it's got to get done.
Yeah.
To slowing it down, I've been through that public corporate pressure, and I hated it, and I didn't enjoy it. I did not want to become a new boss in a new career and a new life with, I love everybody moment, and I care about everybody, but I still have ultimate. And Rick and I have had those discussions. And then his life gets ugly and complicated. 3 kids at home, 1 little tiny baby. It's just, and I don't even want to say what's going through my mind because it would make me sound like a communist, so I won't.
I always like our chats. Well, I didn't expect you talking about which one of us is going to sound like a communist today. Okay, fair enough.
Here's the deal. I mean, I'm sitting here with all these things that I really want to do and I want to get done, and it's not where it's like I can't find any capacity inside of him to help me with some of this. That's where I am.
It's interesting on the show model as well. That's something that I'm keen to chat on, maybe on the session on Tuesday. I want to kind of go through everyone's kind of content ideas. With Cam, you missed it last week. We were talking about some buckets of content. We can do that. I'll revisit it slightly today, but you and I can talk about it on Tuesday.
Yeah, that's okay. I got to move forward with you on some of these other ideas that I have, and help me formulate a couple of things. I got a Mark page that I started, so we got to cover some of that stuff because I want to get rocking on Adopt a Shop. I want to get rocking on Premium. I'm telling you, man, I think I could do something with Premium, Mark. I think I could almost believe, this is so crazy I almost think I could take the Town Hall Academy and shut it down for free and put it behind the firewall. I don't know why I feel that, because here I'm coming up to episode 92. I got 9 weeks, and I could shut it down and I can't have a premium up probably by then. Maybe I could, and just put that whole franchise, and then just go to Jasper and say, you're out, and just live with give Repair PL some of their money back and just go. That would be the draw behind the firewall, the single biggest draw, I believe.
And there's an interesting point there as well. I think obviously we've got to do the maths on it, but if you consider that you could do that live, and if people attend live, then they get it. But the replay is never available; it's just in there. Or do you keep
right?
There's different ways of doing that. So I think
right. There's a lot of guys out there that have premium sites, and they do their live one thing, and it's up for a little bit. They take it down off of Facebook, and it's now in the fire. It's now behind the premium window. And if you think of the content that I have, and here's the problem. All these episodes are out there. They're evergreen. They're not going to stop. But 101 forward is you've come to love and learn. Well, now pay for it.
Well, just to throw this idea, we'll talk about it on Tuesday in more depth, but I wanted to throw the idea out so you can start to mull it over the weekend. Is kind of pulling on that idea that you mentioned about getting people in for individual sessions, and maybe getting people back over the next, over the next 3 months and tearing it up. There's something I think potentially interesting for you in sticking to your original plan. Now, just hear me out on this one. Like you're moving into being this media company in the space, and being here doing what we're doing in the education, in the academia space this week. It just reminded me of some of the conversations that we had over the last few months, and just highlighted the fact that actually all of you guys have got a really strong opportunity. Cam, you're a little bit ahead of it because of the amount of content and the breadth of content that you're producing. But I think there's maybe something for you in actually becoming an actual, this is a really random way of looking at it, but like the Disney of the industry. And what I mean by that is not just being podcasting, not just being video, but being the entire experience. So I think there's something in the idea of being kind of the Netflix of the aftermarket. And what I mean by that is it's not just, okay, we'll do one podcast and have all these episodes. Actually, we go hyper tight, super niche on one podcast. So you've got one podcast, which is just the first 3 years of a shop and how to set that thing up. But that is it. And that's all it does. That is the only thing that it will do. And then you've got another show, which is how to sell your shop. And that is all you ever talk about on that show. And then you've got the range in between. And then you've got books, you've got videos, you've got the town hall. And then suddenly charging people $15-20 a month for this thing that they can get back tax deductible. Suddenly to get the Jasper level of revenue, even the Federal Mogul level of revenue that they bring into you, is not that difficult, but it would require you leaning into what you're great at, which is all of these content paths, but not just audio and not broad. So you might have 10 shows, super focused, and you're selling the library of things. And the reason that it popped into my mind the other day on Friday, I think it was, when we were speaking here, and it was we always talk about the kind of audio influence thing, and there's just being this influencer. And Cam, you've proven that this week. Like, to get 30 people turning up based on social media is a really bloody good result. Like, that's a really good result. Even like if someone like John put out to his audience just a random tweet, he wouldn't get 30 people turn up.
Guess what? And you had to be an industry week, and you had to stay an extra day. How about that as a filter?
Exactly. So you're right. You're filtering all this audience down, and then still 30 people turned up. So I do think there's something for you in being a Netflixy style person, and it would be, from my view, I see this being an act.
I agree with you, because here I am at Apex, and there's TV kiosks everywhere playing Apex TV. Mm-hmm. And I've gotten to know Kimberly Bottom, who is the host, and she interviewed me at the end of our roundtable. And I don't know if it'll ever make air, but wherever I go, she's interviewing people. And I keep looking at that and saying, God, that needs to be me. Or at least if it's not me, because I'm the voice of the industry, Kimberly is just a talent with pretty blonde hair that they hired. Why am I not the host of Apex TV? And if not, why aren't I doing roundtables for them? And why aren't they just pick? So that Mark, you and I are absolutely right on.
And what am I trying to say with this? I agree with that, but bring it into your network. So I think
No, that's what I meant. I didn't want to be the highlight at Apex. I wanted it to be the highlight of my brand. Yes.
And I think if we look at developing, a year or a 15-month plan where there's a transition that needs to happen, both technically and from the content and from a brand perspective, we need to map out what that looks like. It might be by Apex 2020 or Apex 2019 or whatever, whatever. We need to put a date on it and just say, look, by this time, we need to have shifted the perception and have the technology in place, and have the content in place. There's something in that for you, I think.
Yeah, and I think there's only one way that it works, and that is to get 1,000 subscribers at $29 a month.
Yeah, I would agree. And if you you then, like you said, you get $29 a month, you might be able to even charge more because it's corporate, it's company, it's business, it's even the little shop owners. If you say to them, look, it's $50 a month, you can train all your staff using this. You've got access to this thing. You can learn everything you need to know, and it's deductible. Like you pay $45 a month for a membership to a Upreneur or some other shit. This is hyper relevant to them. So there's something in that, and it's just about transitioning over and working out what brand story beats we need to tell, working what technological beats we need to put in place, the content pieces that we need to thread through, and how we're going to build that library. What's the launch plan? If it's $29 a month, what do we do for early users? Is it $15 a month for life? If you join
founders,
now?
Founders.
There's plenty in there, but I think the time is now to start thinking about that and using the next year to just transition through into that.
I totally agree. In fact, I was even thinking here, I've got my studio set up with these 3 high boy round tables and all these chairs. And I'm thinking, hell, pull them out of there and set everybody up, get a camera at the other end. And
yeah, it's strong. There's something in that, definitely. I think everyone can do that. I think, and we'll talk about the content stuff in a second, but I think a lot of people are creating content to be marketers, which is perfect. That's what we need to do. We're using content to market other stuff. But at the same time, we can't discount actually the fact that the content could be the product as well.
Got it. No, those are great ideas. I love that super niche idea. I really do, Mark.
It could be really good, that. And just to finish up on that one, I was talking to a guy the other day, the guy that runs this conference, actually, Zach, and he was saying that he's got a super, super niche little podcast, and he's got no idea. Like these guys, it's a different type of podcasting, which is fun. I don't care about downloads, and he was just he barely checks his download stats, and he was saying, I don't know, maybe I get 30,000-40,000 downloads every month. And I was like, oh, okay. And you don't even check, you're not even bothered. Like he was thinking that was a bad thing. For most podcasters, that's wonderful. So I do think there's something in that, almost like behind closed doors. There's stuff going on that we don't even know about that's huge. And you could be one of those people.
So the thing that I have no idea why I'm excited about this, especially since my downloads now are half, and I feel like shit about it. But okay, all right. So we're moving forward, and I don't know why I'm excited about keep building this company and this brand when nobody really listens anymore.
Well, they didn't before. That's the thing. I think this is why you're excited. I think this is the interesting. And my brain went through this transition 2 or 3 years ago, and I think most podcasters eventually do this. Is that you've suddenly realised that actually people are listening, and the download, like what we talked about, the audience has not changed. Like those people, the physical people, were still listening, but the difference is you've been able to get 30, 40 people to a meetup. You've had people walking in on you, where last year you might not have had that as much.
No, I know that. I know that to be a fact, right?
Yeah, and that's the difference, is that the downloads were always connected to success for most podcasters. And the shift that I'm seeing, and so I'm trying to actually advocate it, is that you don't need those downloads. Kind of don't connect to the people at all. These are just a technological mix of algorithmic measurements. It's like if Andrea listens to your show 10 times, the one episode 10 times, it's not whether it's 10 downloads or 1, it doesn't matter. Andrea is still a massive fan. And that, I think that's the disconnection that most people start to see after 3 or 4 years of doing a podcast. Because things like that happen. People walk up to you and shake your hand, and then Rick gets on Goodman Project, and Andrea gets to talk to Strength Scope and work with Marge, and suddenly the downloads don't matter. It's just another metric.
Back to the algorithm. If I listen today and then 3 days later I listen totally again, is that 2 or just 1?
So let me work that out in my head. So same device within 24 hours, that would count as 2.
As long as there's a gap of 24 hours.
And as long as there's a gap of 24 hours and they listen to, or they download more than 1 minute's worth of bite-sized audio.
Right. Got it. Yeah, got it. Okay.
Yeah, so that'll work out.
Well, so in order to get that happening, I just bought some swag. I bought some mouse pads and coffee mugs, and I'm going to start probably maybe this week or next week. I just got to collect my thoughts, get these episodes out this week, and tell people I'm going to create a page on your site called Contest. It's already done on your site, on my site. and I can set a password for the page, and I'm going to give that password out for the entire month. And when they come in, there'll be a register. You'd like to, email. I haven't built up the real details of it yet, and then I'll do a random drawing. I'm not sure if it'll be at the end of a month, maybe for 2 or 3 people, and tell them that, hey, they got to listen to the end in order to get the password of the week, or they have to listen. I may just interrupt it 3/4 of the way through. Hey, continue to listen 3/4 of the way through. You'll hear the you'll hear the code for the month. I'm going to play with that.
Yeah, you could even do something where you migrate them across different episodes. So give them a passphrase, and you give them 1 word per episode for a month, or do it for a 2 week or whatever.
That's an idea.
Because remember, the point of any content, and it's kind of this is a nice little segue into what we're talking about anyway, is that the goal of the content is to get someone coming in and wanting to listen to the next piece. So when they've finished, like, their option is to go from your content. It's like, let's say I'm watching a DVD, right? And I'm watching a binge watching a series. If I watch episode 1 and it's crap, I ain't watching episode 2. And that's why cliffhangers exist. So they think, this guy's gonna definitely that's why 24 was like crack. Like, you just wanted it to watch that thing and watch that thing and watch that thing. So if the point then is to breed the reliance, so that it's when they're bored and they're thinking, I've got a 4-hour car journey or a train journey, what shall I download? Your thing is the thing they think of. And it's just, if you can get someone listening for 15 minutes 4 times, rather than, I'll listen to the first minute, find out where Cam's going to do the giveaway, and then jump to that section. Like, if you can get them listening 2 or 3 times.
I'll probably just say, hey, during the show, you'll get your passcode. I won't say anywhere. I'll just, hey, listen, during the show, I'll pop you the password for this month, or the code for this month, so that you can log in and get online to earn some swag.
And look at a retention plan for that as well. Like, how do you get them to come back from next month? Okay, when are we going to announce that? It's a really popular tactic in membership communities. And you'll see us doing this subtly and not really notice it. But what you'll do is if you're running just a pure membership like we do with our academy, let's say you're on the $37 a month plan and we want you to renew and just keep that membership up. Let's say there's a contest. The deadline will be before the payment date, and then the announcement will be after the payment date, because there's a retention strategy in place there to keep people engaged and wanting to not cancel that membership. And it's the same, like, so many people do it. You'll see it throughout. If you keep your eyes open for it, you'll see people like, okay, now I see that. Car dealerships do it. They'll want you to buy something, as want you to buy something before a sale starts, as opposed to a membership that's trying to keep you past the date. So there's loads of like weird little tactics that you can do that you can use.
Really cool subliminal strategies. I get it.
Yeah, so we can dig into that. Let's talk about content then. So you guys put the content buckets together. So Cam, you were obviously in Vegas last week. What we talked about was over the last 3 weeks, we talked week 1, if you cast your mind back a couple of weeks, we talked about those themes of content, like the 10, 12 questions that people are going to be asking you. The theory with those is that they can form kind of monthly themes for your content for 2019. Last week we talked about content buckets, and what I'm going to do is with everyone in particular next week when we chat in person is just develop them on and just say, okay, take those and then move them on a little bit further. So the idea was that if we've got to produce content 4 times a month, let's say it's a 4-week month, we've got a different type of content, a different bucket of content that we produce every single week. So week 1 of the month might be 2-minute recipes. And week 2 might be how to get your kids to eat the greens. Week 3 might be, okay, exercise tips, blah, 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 if you're in a health mode. And there might be question and answers for the last week of the month. So all these different types of buckets of content. And we'll develop them on. Rick, you'd sent yours. Andrea, you'd sent yours, which are all great. We'll develop them on Tuesday when we talk. The last part of the puzzle. So if you think we've got our themes, we've got our kind of our buckets of content. So if we have one idea, we can sort it into a bucket and say, you know what, I found this. Okay, this banana's given me an idea for a piece of content. I'm going to put that in the 2-minute tips bucket, or I'm going to put that in the exercise routine bucket, or whatever it is. The third part of it is making sure that the content that you've got actually does something for you. Because if you think about it, and you'll all understand this, your traffic has probably not increased that much over the last year. So Rick, if you were to look at your Google Analytics, I would suggest that the traffic's probably not increased that much. The email list has probably not increased that much. Calm, probably the same for you. Even if it's gone up 10, 15, 20%, that's pretty good. We can probably do better with that. The problem is that when most people do this, they give themselves more work. And that means that they can't then focus on making the money or negotiating sponsorships or setting up new stuff or going out and speaking or whatever. So the third part of the puzzle is this content development process that I want to kind of give you. And it's something that we use internally for our stuff. And it's something that I've developed from like 10 different places and kind of pulled different principles in and, all sorts of different ideas and just melded them together into something that works for us. And the idea of it is that you've kind of got to get off this hamster wheel of creating the content, but at the same time, you've got to be sure that if you create some content, it will do something for you. It will do something for you. It's going to bring you business. It's going to generate leads. It's going to bring in something. So what I want to do on Tuesday with you is bring all these three elements together. So we're going to talk about individually between us, talk about researching content ideas, talk about these themes, talk about these buckets, and talk about this process, this content development process. But I'm going to give you the process now. So it might be worth kind of, I can put it on Slack as well, but if you want to write it down, if you want to make any notes on it, I'm going to go into that. So the idea is when you create a piece of content, let's say it's a blog post, and I'm creating one now, which is based on a talk I'm doing, which is called Choose Happiness, Choose Control. And it's not anything to do with work. It's just something that I've been asked to talk about. So I'm doing a blog post on it. And normally what would happen is you do that blog post, you put it on your blog, and then you'd maybe like do some social around it, like a Facebook post and a couple of tweets and maybe an Instagram, maybe talk about it a little bit on a podcast. But then you'd move on to the next piece of content. Like Calm, let's assume this is a similar thing with your show. You'd produce an audio piece of content, then you'd move on to the next piece. You might do a little bit of marketing, stick it into a queue, but actually that's it. And then you move on to the next episode. It's serialized. What I think we can do is we can do a little bit more with that content. Because if you think about when you're in the flow of creating something, like it becomes easier if you're in the zone to create other stuff around that whilst you're doing it, because you're so much tuned in to that zone. Like Andrew, if you were talking about, okay, top 3 ways to cut down your kids' usage of social media or their propensity to share, if you're talking about that now and I said to you, write me 5 blog posts, you would be able to do it. If I said to you in a week, right, okay, that one blog post you did, can you write me 4 more? You'd be thinking, well, actually, I've got to get back into the mindset. I've got to maybe do some more research. You're not in that flow state. So the process that I think you can use to capitalize on that is as follows. So what we do is we take one piece of content, and we call these content packages. I don't know if anyone else in the world does, but I've termed these content packages. So every Monday, I review 2 content packages at our weekly meeting. Each content package starts with an idea. Now, the cool thing is that idea can be derived from your content theme. So you think of those 12 questions. Take one idea, choose happiness, choose control. That's the idea. Okay, so you write the idea. And then what you do, you decide what the main piece of content is going to be. So in my case, it might be a blog. I'm going to write a blog on choosing happiness and choosing control as opposed to choosing money. But then what I do is I do a few extra pieces on top of that. So this content, this blog post has got to earn some money for me. Because it's content marketing. It's not just content creation. It's marketing myself through some content. So what I then do is I'll put together an alternative format. And Rick, we've touched on this a little bit. And what I mean by an alternative format is picking, not like not a repurposing. So I'm not taking this blog post and I'm not doing a podcast about it, and I'm not doing I'm not doing a video about it. They're just alternative types of media. What I'm talking about is a different format for this content. So as an example, choose happiness, choose control. The crux of that blog post is saying, do you know what? I thought for a long time that the thing that I wanted was money. And when I was younger and I had a pile of money doing contracting, I realized that actually I hated that. It wasn't about the money. It was about the control of the life. Like, why would someone else that I've never met before tell me where I need to be and when I need to be there? It's ridiculous. So the alternative content to that may be a case study. It might be a quiz. It might be a versus comparison chart. It might be a rant or a review. It might be an introduction to another piece of content. So in this case, Rick, I'll use you as the example. I do a blog post called Choose Happiness, Choose Control. I might do an alternative case study, which also acts as an introduction to my friend Rick Clemens, who chose happiness, chose control by writing a book called Frankly My Dear, I'm Gay, after coming out of the closet, and then building this brand. So I'm creating this one blog post. Then I've got an alternative piece, which is totally standalone, but it's related to this original. So I've got two pieces of content from one idea. And then the third thing, and this is where the business side of it comes in, I would create a nice content upgrade for that. So as an example of this, I would have the blog post, Choose Happiness, Choose Control. I would have an alternative format, which would be an introduction to Rick Clemens, the coming out coach, or living life uncloseted. And then I would have a content upgrade. So in both of those pieces, I would cross-link to them and say, if you enjoyed this piece, go and check this piece out. If you enjoyed this one, go check this. And at the bottom of each one, or throughout each one, I would have a big call to action. Go and take the happiness quiz that I've developed. And to do that, guess what you've got to do? You've got to give me an email address, or you've got to join the free academy. And that's a package, the package of content. Then the last two things that I devise for these things, these content packages, are what we call the monetization logic. And then for the future, for you guys, in particular, Cam, if you're looking at membership stuff, a retention logic. So what that means is, when I'm marketing this thing, what is the angle that I'm going to take? Like, the monetization logic is, what is the angle that I'm going to take to market this to strangers, to try to get them to fill that email address in? What is the angle? So the monetization logic is this. If someone reads this blog post, I will market it to them in such a way that I will help them understand why they are not happy. The logic is, the monetization logic is that if I hit that, and if I connect with them, they will give me that email address, which means I can then in the future nurture them through to selling something. So the monetization logic is, I have to talk to them about being unhappy. The retention logic, let's say that people are already paying me for something. So Cam, someone's in your membership. The retention logic, the way you would market to those guys, would be something along the lines of, look, I know you're actually already well on your way to happiness because we're working together. We're doing great stuff. You've got all this content there. We know each other. But actually, 2019 is coming up. What if we could give you 5% more happiness? So the marketing angles, the retention logic, the marketing angle for those who are already buying something for you versus those who aren't, the monetization logic, they're slightly different. And that's all stemming from one idea. Literally all stemming from one idea. So that forms a content package. Now, the really cool thing with this is that when you put it together with your buckets of content, when you put it together with your themes of content, it becomes really easy. So Rick, use you as the example again. If you have an idea, which is choose happiness, choose happiness, choose control. You've got your Monday piece of content, which might be the blog. You've got your Friday, fuck it Friday, which might be a Facebook Live, or it might be, you might publish something else somewhere. That's two outlets that you've got already. So all we need to do is think of, okay, what's the main piece? When's that going out? Maybe on the Monday. On the Friday, I'm going to post an alternative type of content, like a review, a comparison chart, or a how-to tutorial, an in-depth tutorial about a similar kind of thing. but I'm going to publish that on Friday. It's going to be slightly different content. It's going to go in a different place, but it's tenuously linked. And then at the end of the week, I'm going to hammer my email list with, if you've seen these 2 pieces of content, go and join my Facebook group, or go and get on my email list, or go and book the discovery call. But the key thing is adding as many relevant resources, and this plays to you, Calm, a lot as well, for your membership, adding as many relevant free resources as you can. So as an example, what people tend to do, and I know I'm kind of giving you a lot of info here, but what people tend to do is they'll put 2 blog posts out, and they'll do like the main content for the week, and then they'll do an alternative piece, which might be that, like a versus chart or a case study. And they'll say, right, the call to action is go and book a discovery call. Or even go and join my email list, just get on the newsletter, and it's not enough. The next thing that they do is they'll say, go and get my ebook. That ebook that I publish on every single blog post that is always the thing that I'm talking about. And again, it's not quite enough. The content upgrade that you give in each content package has to be related to those 2 pieces of content, the main piece and the alternative piece. If it's not, it's totally irrelevant. So in this choose happiness example, the content upgrade might be literally click here, put your email address in, and I will send you the 3-point happiness checklist. That is it. And then the next week, I might do a blog post on how to live healthier as a founder. And I do a main piece of content, which is why your health is so important. I might do an alternative piece of content, which might be my top five exercise routines for busy entrepreneurs. And then the content checklist, or the resource that I give away, the content upgrade, would be, here are my top 5 recipes for breakfast for founders that are on the go all the time. And it's related to that content. I'm not just telling people to go and get my same ebook that I marketed last week and then the one the week before. And so we've got a package of content each time. Does that kind of make sense? I know I'm hitting you with a hell of a lot of stuff. And I want to develop this individually with each of you next week. But I just wanted to throw the concept in and start to let it sink in. Cam's shaking his head in a good way. I can see that. His probably brain's ticking over.
It's fried.
Good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put together a checklist outline for you guys on this, so you can just take it.
And all you have to do is join the premium side, and you'll get it.
$297. But I'll put a checklist together. What I might do it on Google Sheets, because that's what we use internally, where you basically fill this thing in, and you can physically print it out or put it in your iPad and say, that's a package of content. I've got to create this blog post, this case study or quiz, and I've got to create this content upgrade, and here are the ways that I'm going to market it. So I'll put that together. I'll give you some examples of like other types of content you can use for your alternates. I'll give you everything that you need. The goal for that, and this is probably pertinent to you, Cam, a little bit earlier than other people, is that you can add another layer to it, which is how much of this is behind the paywall and how much of it isn't. Which piece is more valuable, which piece is less valuable, what's the better marketing piece, what's the better paid for premium piece. So there's plenty we can do with that. But like I said, I'll put this process together so you guys can use it. But Rick, for people like you that are already creating content, the goal is really to increase the numbers. So get the email list up, so that when someone's reading a piece of content, they come in, they finish the blog post, and they're not bouncing off and leaving. What they're doing is they're going to another related piece of content, and at some point they're getting a piece of upgraded content, a resource, a checklist, a tool, a download that is purely related to those pieces. And that's it. They come into your site and you grab them, you keep them. That's the idea. So that we can then, when you are scheduling these posts on social, if someone does click through, there's more chance of them actually joining your email list or your membership or whatever, or booking the calls, than there is just from a standard blog post with a call to action. So that's a shit ton of stuff. Someone hit me with some thoughts. How are we feeling? Cam's feeling fried. Rick, what are you thinking? You've played with content a lot before anyway. What's going on in your head?
Some of it's what I'm already doing. I think you got to find the balance, because this could become a huge project. But I agree with quite a bit of it. I think I'm already there because of the way I've set up stuff for Good Men Project and other stuff. So it's just finding what that's going to look like without overloading the system right now. That's my biggest concern.
Well, actually, that's a really good point, and it's something I forgot to mention. In my view, personally, creating all of these things, so the main piece of content, let's call it a 1,000-word blog post, an alternate piece, so a different type of that content, and the upgrade. I don't see that should take much more than half a day a week, which is what you'd put into a good piece of content anyway. And the idea is that because you're already doing this thing, it's very easy to flip that and talk about it from a different perspective because you are already doing it. It's almost kind of be more focused. So rather than letting your blog post digress and move, actually that one stays focused and the digression comes in another format. Because most people wind through. And so I agree totally with that, man. It could take over, but I think if you can keep it, we try and keep it to half a day per content package. Because like you say, it can take over. Andrea, what are you thinking? You see you nodding along.
Yeah, this is exactly what I need. I think it's perfect for where I'm at. So I'm probably the one in need most, since these guys are already out there.
And it's a good framework for you to get started as well, you know, rather than starting and just creating something, not aimlessly, but with without an eye on how this is going to link through to the business side of things. You know, it's a really nice framework to just get into the habit of doing. The really cool thing with it as well is that you almost, because you are doing such a good comprehensive job on the content, if you follow these kind of processes, if you have a bad week, it's all right. Because what you can do is republish something you've done in the past. And you know that if you send someone to that one piece of content, the ecosystem will take care of itself. Like, you're not just quickly putting a blog post out just to tick a box. It's better to republish this other thing because you know that the system will take care of the people and they will eventually move through to maybe an email address or a transaction, rather than, like I said, like a quick 500-word blog post just because you said you'd blog on Tuesdays. And that's the kind of difference with this thing.
Got it.
Cool. Like that. So any thoughts or questions? Anything anyone wants to go to? Like I said, I know I've hit you with a lot of stuff, but I do want to do this individually with each of you on Tuesday. So any thoughts or questions on any of the buckets or any of the content stuff we've done in the past, or that process that I've just literally thrown at you? Any thoughts?
You mean next Tuesday, right?
Yeah, the 13th. Sorry, yeah.
Okay.
I think I've got content buckets already created, and I've used the categories on the website to help my listener filter. And then when I look at them, I realize what type of shows that I need to create. In fact, I think what you did for me, Mark, is you really laid something in my lap that I think I have been grooming and growing to, but I think I need to actually do something about it. And that is that I'm doing individual interviews with people, and we're covering a plethora of challenges that they have, 2 or 3 or 4. I'm sure that that's getting a little old, and I need to get on with someone and say, give me your number one, the number one thing you're working on, your number one passion, your number one problem, your number one opportunity. It's going to fall into those content buckets. And let's just do a show on that. Let's stop saying, hey, in this show, you'll hear about boom, boom, boom. How about in this show, you'll hear about boom. Yeah.
And the really good thing about that is, well, that you've got Rick on board. So you and I can, I mean, if you think about every type of content you create, you know, each content package you run through this process. You could start with a blog post, but you could also, like that forms one content package. But we could even do this so that each podcast episode becomes a package, and you've got the main content as the interview. The alternate content might be like a behind the scenes interview that then gets transcribed using rev.com, and actually that just becomes a blog post behind something or on the website, and then there's a checklist that goes with it, or a download, or a resource, or a spreadsheet. Spreadsheets, I don't know why, but spreadsheets, calculators get the best email transactions without a shadow of a doubt. I don't know so any ideas you've got for quick calculators or like resources that, like budgeting tools that you can use for your industry, anything like that will fly. They will give you.
I've included them in some of my episodes because the person who came on to talk about it was willing to give it.
Mm-hmm.
And I really haven't looked some downloads in a long time, but so PDFs, articles that people have written, they're cool if I include it as a download. We were talking about this specific thing, and by the way, you can download it if you want to see it. So, the really cool thing about Jasper's, part of our agreement is that I would write blogs for them, and they would post it on their websites and or in their paper newsletters.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always referencing an episode that I did, Town Hall Academy, which was Town Hall Academies are the single subjects that I cover each and every week, a different one. That's that trending thing. So I would write an article that they would post it, and of course I would link back to the show. But you know what I never did? I never went, I took the blog, I ended up taking their blog a month later and putting it on my site. So I ended up taking what I wrote for them and making it a blog, but I never went to my episode and linked the blog to it.
Yeah, that's what happens. And interestingly with that, what you could easily do with that sort of stuff is that rather than repost a thing, you can write like an op-ed about Jasper's blog, and it actually stretch some more content goodness out of it.
Yeah.
And you start to come up with this. The goal, in my opinion, I talked about this on my podcast last week. Like the goal really is for you guys just to become the Wikipedias of your industry. So if someone wants to make a bold move or they're struggling with something like that, Rick, your site is the one that when they're searching for something, it's always there, top 3 search results. Andrea, how do I make my kids better? How do I make my life easier when it comes to appreciating family life more? Boom, Andrea's site is there all the time. How is she doing that? And then Cam, anything automotive aftermarket, Wikipedia, that has got to be, just be the Wikipedia. But to do that, you need the framework, because as Rick mentioned, if not, you spend 5 days a week creating content and not making any money. Cool. Okay, we'll stick a pin in it in a sec. Any thoughts, any final remarks, anything that you guys need?
Well, I think the other piece that is somewhat missing on this, and maybe we can talk about this next week in our group as well as individually, is, okay, you do all this, you get people to your email list. So what? What do you do beyond that?
Oh, the email list is, the post-transaction part of it.
That's the piece that you have to have something there, or you've just done all this work for no reason.
Well, I think it comes down to a couple of things. I totally agree. So this leads us up to the transaction. The goal of the last 3 weeks is to try and get the transaction of, okay, I'm going to give you some data or I'll give you some money, hopefully. You're right. After that, there's a couple of different ways to consider that we need to talk about. Is, okay, what do we do ongoing? See you, Andrew. Bye. What do we do on a kind of a day-to-day basis? Like, how do we market the stuff that we're doing? And actually, what's the onboarding sequence like? There's some interesting points with that as well that we can probably get into, which is like, how do you guide people through based on what actions they take? So like, how do you automate certain things? You've probably done some of this as well, Rick, with your email list, and Cam, you could definitely do this. Starting to tag people and send them down different onboarding campaigns. And if you remember, we'd set some groundwork for this, because a few months ago, we talked about writing 100 days worth of emails, which was the onboarding, the welcome sequences. So you're right, Rick, definitely all ties together. It's just different for everyone, isn't it? Because of the business goals.
I mean, what I'm finding, and I think it's what's helped me, is getting back in this strategy with Good Men Project, is I literally have a week like this week. Good Men Project's 1 week off, but like this week, I'm working on stuff around perfection. Well, so I'm writing a blog post on my own thing about perfection, but next week it'll be something that comes out on Good Men Project. But then on LinkedIn, it's also what I'm writing about, for college guys around perfection. And you hit the nail on the head, because I've been thinking about this, like, okay, I have all this stuff, but what is it? I mean, I even was going back to my own opt-in right now about, why you're not making a bold move. It's almost like I need something that's specific to this topic to say, oh, okay, now here's the thing you need. Here's the 10 things that men try to do in the pursuit of perfection that makes them fail. It's its own thing that you don't get unless you go sign up for it.
Yeah, exactly. And there's also, you know, you're on the right tracks with that. If you take that one idea and you turn it then into a case study, or here's how this person versus this person did it.
Right.
And then you spin that around the you know, give them the resource, which might be, okay, what's your emotional state right now? When it comes to making these moves, you know, fill this checklist in and it will give you a score. So you're on the right track, definitely, with that. You take that one idea.
Well, even as I'm now planning for next year, because I have these 12 buckets, so to speak, of content ideas, as people are starting to approach me to want to be on the podcast, which is great because I'm not having to go out and look. I can now look at this and go, okay, so you want to be on my podcast. You know what? I think you'll fit really great in January, because January, we're talking about coming out of the closet around fear, or how to live your life uncloseted without being in a state of fear constantly. I can say that to them. That then sets up that whole month, even though I'm not going to broadcast, here's what we're talking about, but there'll be a theme. And then everything I'm doing on my own podcast, even as I'm considering trying to do some Facebook Lives in my Gay Man's Life Coach thing, like if I do something today, which I might do something today as a test to just see what kind of people start to interact. If I do something today around perfection, it's like, okay, why do us gay guys always go for the perfect guy and the perfect body? And because it's all bullshit. We are so wounded by our imperfection. So now I've got the whole thing set up, and I'm talking more about this on my podcast on Friday, if you want to tune in for that. And I actually wrote a blog post that's coming out Thursday you might want to check out. So then you've got the whole thing going. The one piece that's missing is then what do I get them to do to like go engage? So,
yeah. And if you can make that relevant to that 1 week, that's where the magic happens. It's that relevancy to that piece.
Yeah.
Because most people will say, you know, book a call, or they'll do something like go get my generic ebook.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that you're right. If that's just a one missing piece, tighten that up. And you can even add a framework for yourself. You know, test what works more and more with your audience. And like I said, if people want spreadsheets or they want PDFs or whatever, you just do more of those, and tie it all together. And the great thing with that is that if you throw then 10 bucks of ads at that content, as opposed to trying to get people onto a call or whatever, actually the constant 10 bucks a week at that content should start to generate quite a bit of goodwill and quite a bit of email transactions.
Yeah.
Love it. Right, let's wrap it up, guys.
All right, have a good week.
We'll see you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys. This was good.
Bye.
See you, Rick. Bye, Mark.